This story right here made me in extremely some type of way and not in a good way at all. Because this story right here that I'm bringing to you is more evidence that the police in this country, in this establishment, are some hardcore savages, and they're just getting worse and worse by the day, no matter what department that it's in. So we all know what just recently happened with Walter Wallace and everything engaging at that. Well, now we're going right back into Philadelphia, and this is a branch off of Walter Wallace, but kind of separate from it as well, but it's still a cause of concern. So you see this woman right here, her name is Rickia Young. She has blood on her face and blood on her sweat shirt and on her pants, and she appears to have been roughed up because her hair is all over the place and her hands behind her back, so I'm assuming that she has cuffs on. So everybody knows that there was rioting, people reacting to what happened to Walter Wallace Jr. Well, this woman right here was not a part of any of that. And she was driving, trying to get home, trying to get out of the area. And she had her child with her. I think she has a son. Well, she was snatched out of her car by those terrorists and beaten. And then they detained her. And then after they did that, they took her child away from her. Now, I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to read the article, and then I'm going to bring up the plot twist to this entire situation. It is absolutely disturbing. A Philadelphia police officer was pulled from street duties this week and is under an internal affairs investigation after attorneys say a woman was thrown from her car, beaten, detained, and separated from her child while trying to drive home during protests and unrest Tuesday. Attorneys for Rickia Young say Philly cops broke her windows with batons, struck her several times, and pulled her 2-year-old son and 16-year-old nephew from a vehicle she was driving near protesters police this week. Before 2 a.m. Tuesday, Young, aged 28, a healthcare worker, left her home near Temple University in her sister's SUV to go pick up her nephew, who was with friends in West Philadelphia. The city was in a second day of unrest that included marching peaceful protesters and looting from others, and after officers shot and killed Walter Wallace Jr. Monday. Since then, Wallace's family and the city agreed to publicly release on November 4th the police body camera footage that shows the officers' perspective of the incident, which was also seen on social media. When Young was trying to get home early Tuesday, the National Guard had not yet arrived in Philadelphia to protect businesses during looting and unrest. It was mere hours after Wallace was killed Monday afternoon, and police were all over monitoring protests and responding to looting, including along 52nd Street. That's where Young, who tried to make her usual route home from West Philly, was at the wheel when she encountered a standoff between the officers on 52nd Street and the different protesters and whoever else was out there in confrontation with the police, attorney Kevin Mincy said. Mincy said police on 52nd Street ordered Young to turn back. She began backing up to make a U-turn. That's gonna be a typo. The officers then swarmed her car, Mincy said, using the batons to break the windows before opening the door and pulling Young from the vehicle. They struck Young and the teenage nephew before detaining her and holding the 2-year-old. Young had swelling on her face and body, a swollen trachea, and was bleeding. Mincy said officers told Young her son was going to be taken to a quote-unquote better place. Young was placed in the back of a police vehicle with a juvenile who had a cell phone. Young used that person's phone to call her mother, who was the 2-year-old's grandmother. The grandmother went to 52nd Street and asked for her daughter and grandson, but he wasn't there. The grandmother eventually found the boy about 4 miles away near City Hall, in the back of a police vehicle with officers in the front seat. The 2-year-old was in his seat without his hearing aids and with broken glass shards in the car seat. Young spent the night between police headquarters and Jefferson University Hospital, where she received treatment under officer supervision. Later, she was released with no charges filed. Young's purse, wallet, and her son's hearing aids were in the vehicle, which has not been located. The car, we assume, has been destroyed. We do not know where the car is. Police have not attempted to inform us where the car may be recovered. Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw told reporters Friday that an officer who struck the vehicle was placed on restricted duty during the internal affairs investigation that began after a reporter asked her about a viral video filmed from a rooftop that captured officers hitting Young. The Philadelphia Inquirer spoke to witnesses, including a resident who filmed the video. With the case and any other allegations that have since arisen, we take all of this seriously, Outlaw said Friday. My expectation is that these investigations are done in a fair and timely manner. Now, you just heard me read that entire incident right there, and this is a bunch of bullshit. Like, it stinks to the high heavens when it comes to this story right here. They had absolutely no right to do what they did to this woman. And imagine how traumatic it was for her 16-year-old nephew and her 2-year-old child, who they said wears a hearing aid, so he definitely has a hearing problem. Or he may be just flat out deaf. And then the traumatic issues that the 16-year-old is going to have to deal with because he got hit as well. They both pretty much got detained, but they took the 2-year-old. Can you imagine being in that situation and your child just gets snatched away from you? Now, the story they gave was that the child would be taken to a safer place. Well, let me pause this right quick and bring up the plot twist behind this entire thing. So here you have a post on Twitter that came from the National Fraternal Order of Police, but it was retweeted by this guy named Riley H. Ross III, who was an attorney. Now, I'm going to read to you what the Fraternal Order of Police said. They said this child was lost during the violent riots in Philadelphia, wandering around barefoot in an area that was experiencing complete lawlessness. The only thing this Philadelphia police officer cared about in that moment was protecting this child. We are not your enemy. We are the thin blue line, and we are the only thing standing between order and anarchy. Now, this post was retweeted by Riley H. Ross. Now, it's more to it than what he put up there because he has it bullet point by 1, and so I'm guessing there's 2, 3, and so on and so forth. But we don't really need to see the other parts because we can get it all right here. He says, this post by the @GLFOP, which is the National Order of Fraternal Order of the Police, is a lie. My firm @MincyFitzRoss represents this boy and his mother. This photo was taken moments after police attacked their vehicle, busted out the windows, and ripped the mother from her car and assaulted her. So what they did was they had this little black boy in the arms of this white woman who was a cop and make it look so sympathetic and look like he was being tended to. And they said that this boy was found wandering around when the entire time this boy was snatched from the car that his mother was in, who just got her windows busted out and got beat up and detained, who was also in the car with her 16-year-old nephew, where the same thing pretty much happened to him. And they fabricated this lie to make themselves appear to be more sympathetic, or people to look more empathetic towards them in this state that they're in right now because of what happened to Walter Wallace Jr. Look at the last line. We are not your enemy. Yes, the hell you are. We are the thin blue line. We are the only thing standing between order and anarchy. What kind of order is it when y'all go up to this innocent woman and bash out her windows and beat on her and snatch her out of the car, then snatch out her son and snatch out her nephew and then detain her and put her in jail, and then they didn't charge her with anything. They can't find the car. They can't find any of the belongings. The boy has a hearing aid. They lost all of that because they did all of that. They straight up fabricated a whole lie and made it seem like this woman is an unfit mother. Talking about they found this boy wandering around. He wouldn't have been wandering, quote unquote, if y'all didn't snatch him out of the car. And even then, he still wasn't wandering. But this goes back to what the video that I did the other day from that young lady by the name of KJ the activist, where one of her bullet points that she made to the police board of commissioners in Kansas City, Missouri, that you have these cops out here, these palm-colored cops, these terrorists out here who will take pictures with black children to make them appear less threatening. But then when they get older or to a certain age where they can seem to be more threatening to your life, so you say you kill them. Now, what's to stop this little boy growing up and getting older, and they won't even remember this kid, and then he's running with maybe this woman or anybody else he came into contact with who was wearing a Philadelphia police uniform that night? They're not going to say, oh, I remember you. You were the little boy that we lied and said was found wandering, and we took care of you. They're not going to say that. If they all sit up here and fabricate a lie like this, they'll do anything. I wouldn't put anything past them. This is why To lamestream media and to PC and their co-colonizing cohorts, if you want to know why many black people have a bad rapport with the police, here is a perfect example of it right here. This woman was just trying to get home from work. She didn't know what was going on. She got snatched out of her car, beaten, detained. The 16-year-old, her nephew, got snatched out, beaten, detained, and they snatched the 2-year-old. And then instead of taking responsibility for what they did, they fabricate this lie and say that he was wandering around and they took care of him and that he was quote unquote lost. Can y'all believe this? I'm not so much shocked that they would do this, but the lengths that they will go to put themselves in a good light is astronomically preposterous. I hope that this mother sues the hell out of this department. The only bad thing is the taxpayers are going to have to end up footing the bill. And please do not have Benjamin Crump, Lee Merritt, or that new up-and-comer Shaka Johnson anywhere near what case she's going to have. And apparently it looks like she has some representation based on the firm that this attorney Riley H. Ross III is talking about. So it looks like she has some representation that is not from the 3 previous people that I just mentioned. But that is a nightmare. Now, had this attorney not gotten a hold of this and put out the right information, people would have been looking at the mother like she was wrong. But that's lamestream media for you. That's these liars for you. And this was put out by the National Fraternal Order of Police, which also means the Philadelphia police probably fed them that lie. I wouldn't be surprised, because like I said, they have to be looked upon in a good light because they know they messed up. But y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments.